Hi, Övül. I'm very pleased to have this talk with you, and I'm welcoming you to my Zoom stories with Turkish origin academicians in the US or outside Turkey. We have a very similar background, I think. Actually, you came from Turkey to the US, and I would love to first hear about you, your biography. Maybe you want to say a few words about yourself and how everything developed. Maybe let's start from there.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. First of all, hello, Elif. It's great to join you today, and hello to all of our audience. So yes, my name is Övül Sezer. Currently, I am an assistant professor at the University of North Carolina Kenan Flagler Business School. I've been here since 2017 fall, so almost 3 years. And I teach negotiations and decision making to MBAs, undergrads, PhD students. So this is what I do. On the side, I also do stand-up comedy, but we can talk about that later. I don't want to create high expectations first. I want to pretend I'm not funny, so that there is no expectation. And I came to United States in 2006. So I grew up in Istanbul, Turkey, as you have mentioned, and I came to Harvard for my college education, and I studied applied math. And then after that, I got very interested in social sciences, and I decided to do a PhD in organizational behavior. And again, I got that. So I stayed at Harvard, and I got my PhD from there as well. And so
when
it's been
there actually. I think we didn't meet there. I was there before you, because
I guess this today is our day to have our meeting. I wish we had our Harvard Square coffee, or the Cambridge coffee together. So yeah, since 2006, it's been 14 years. Will end on September 5th. That was the day I came to the United States. It's a long academic journey, and I look forward to the rest of the adventure.
And where are you from in Turkey?
So I grew up in Istanbul. My family is from NPZR, Sakarya. So I also have very close connections there, because my grandparents were there, and I spent a lot of time there. But my parents moved to Istanbul after I was born. So I grew up in Istanbul. I graduated from Robert College in Istanbul. That's the American high school. If you have been to Istanbul, that's one of the American high schools. And that was the first time I get introduced to the American culture. And then, honestly, I wasn't planning to come to United States at the time, but then it worked out, and I'm staying for a long time now.
And you like it there? So what's special about the States?
I like it here. I think, it's a very interesting, meaningful question nowadays, now that US is also doing a lot of self-questioning with lots of things. And obviously, I can see, we can talk about those things too. US society has, unfortunately, US is also facing lots of issues right now. But the reason why, the things that I love about US is, I think, especially as an academic, I like I like how schools put a lot of weight and put a lot of weight on research. So I think there's a lot of resources that go to research. Students from all around the world come, and it's a good environment. Again, today there was this news that international students need to leave the country if their school moved online. So I know it's such a interesting times we're all going through. But in general, I like the whole very international, cosmopolitan vibe around the academic community and the resources that we have. So far
in New York and in Boston, so I was not really in the US.
That's right. That's right. It's very different. You're so right. I lived in Boston from 2006 to 2017, so for 11 years. And the US I know there, and the US right now I'm meeting in North Carolina are very different places. It's almost like two different countries. Very different.
So you were elected one of, what was it, 40 most valuable, most important young professors?
Yeah, there's this business. There's this.
Wow.
Thank you so much. There's this business school professor list that comes out every year, organized by an organization called Poets and Quants,
Wow.
who does these rankings in business schools. And this year I was one of the 40 under 40 MBA professors of the year. So I was very
proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's great to share the great news together.
So you, what are you actually doing right now? What is your research and why? What's like?
Sure. So I am a behavioral scientist. So I study decision-making mistakes.
I was at the Harvard School of Public Health, and we had like the person who invented decision-making. I think his name was Epstein, or he's like one of the.
There's a scientist named yes, Epstein, yeah. And he was there. Yes.
Yeah, and he was like our hero, the idol, and he was one of those scientists who started to do all these medical questions by decision analysis, so we could have less mistakes and less, really good conduct of research and treatment.
Wow. That's that's super cool, because I like how behavioral science or decision making science is also speaking to other disciplines like medicine, as you said, financial decision making, education. Nowadays it's also used in education, and my specific area of research focuses on social interactions. In particular, I call it impression mismanagement. So there is an area called impression management. How do we make a good impression on others? Like how can we communicate in the best way? But I identify the mistakes that we do in this domain. So that's why I call it impression mismanagement. So what are some failures? What are some mistakes that we do? We all do, but somehow we are blind to our mistakes. We are very good at identifying other people's mistakes when it comes to communication and impression management, but we also fail sometimes, even though we all think that it's an easy task to make a favorable impression on others. So that's in general. And when I say mistakes, by the way, just to give a little more detail, when I say mistakes, I identify behaviors. For instance, one behavior that I think a lot of us would know is called humble bragging.
Depends on the culture. Some don't know humble bragging.
That maybe more, at least the term is definitely very American, but I'm going to give you an example of humble brag and it will be obvious. So a humble brag would be something like, oh my goodness, why do people hit on me even when I'm in my sweatpants?
Okay.
This makes no sense. Oh my goodness, the Uber driver thought I'm 22. How is that even possible? So things like that. Or, I got accepted to both Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Which one do I choose? It gives me a headache. Goldman Sachs or McKinsey, what do I do? Things like that. Or when people are asked, what's your biggest weakness in an interview, job interview? Usually people say, I'm a perfectionist. It's so hard to deal with. I work too hard. I'm so hardworking, or I'm very nice. Things like that. Like when people self-promote, but they actually mask their brag by complaint or false humility. So we think when we are the self-presenter, we think it's going to work. We're getting the best of both worlds. That's what people think. But actually what we have shown, for instance, is that straightforward bragging is much, much better, because at least it's sincere.
That's good. So,
right? Things like that. So I study.
I am. Bah, bah, bah.
Yes, exactly. So things like that. I study humble bragging, backhanded compliments, inside jokes, fishing for compliments, networking behaviors. How do we network? And nowadays I have, of course, very much like I have a lot of interest in online communication. Like imagine I just turn off my video all of a sudden and we continue that way. Like the whole interview wouldn't be the same, right?
Yeah.
But people do that when they join the work meetings. Sometimes we don't have the video. So I study how can we make communications better, and what are some common mistakes that we all do.
Great, wow. We have a lot of connecting knots. Like a therapist, you do the same. Okay, we're also looking at the primary relationships they had with mother and father and siblings and at school and so on, but it's also analyzing how they promote themselves, how they get, how they have trust, or how they, go about being together, or finding borders to, fulfill their own needs and so on. And
yeah,
so it's interesting. And how do you think about the current COVID-19 situation in the US? It's really horrible. As you probably know, I'm always reporting to Turkey over CNN and Haber Global and different broadcasting news, how do you say, studios. I'm reporting how Germany is doing, and trying to find out about Turkey's management, and also a little bit following the US. And I'm totally shocked about how the situation is there. And you have like more than 3 million infected and 140 or I don't know how many thousand dead. And it seems like the president just wants to reduce testing to get rid of the numbers and doesn't do anything about it. So how do you feel? Do you feel safe? How is your life, your daily life there?
Sure. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's really every day is another disappointment, I guess, with how US has handled the COVID crisis. Because I mean, obviously, this was a huge global thing for all of us, and we all had the lockdown and everything. But I think what happened here in particular was this extreme lack of insistence on weird things, like mask all of a sudden became a political symbol. Right? Do you wear a mask, or you don't wear a mask? Or if you wear a mask and if you want other people to wear a mask, are you trying to threaten them? And somehow the whole conversation became about that, which is so not productive and silly, of course, because what we learned from.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, please go ahead.
The vaccine thing in Germany, we had like thousands of people protesting against obligatory vaccination, although we don't have a vaccine yet. So it was really ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. Why all of a sudden these things that are very necessary for our health became, it's like your invasion of your individual freedom or something. And only very recently, like 2 days ago or something, finally some people from the administration said, masks are actually great now that we know masks are the real protection. So there's a lot of loss of time with this dialogue. There's a lot of lack of trust. I think a lot of people lost their trust in lots of things. So administration is one thing, and administration always undermines expertise. So that has become a huge, like a cloud of information out there, and everyone is, some people are trying to follow the rules. I don't think all of the people are trying to follow the rules, which is really unfortunate. So my life in particular has been, of course, very much affected by all of this, because I was teaching at the time and we all went online in one day. But after that, students left because students were having their spring break or something. So without the students, Chapel Hill, North Carolina is a very small college town. So it's not super crowded and things like that. So things are doable, I guess. But we are, at least me personally, I'm still staying a lot indoors, limit my socializing, always have the mask, but not everyone follows it. And the other confusion that is happening right now in the US is, of course, the elections are coming in November, and school season is opening. And I am not sure how it's in Europe, but in the US, all students come to campus and live on campus. It's a very, the college experience or the student experience is very much.
We don't have that.
Yes, it's probably similar to Turkey, right? Like you still go home and come to school because it's shorter distance. Here, students travel and come and live on campus, and schools will reopen. And how is that going to work? For instance, when we teach, we're going to wear masks and stuff, but some of the class will be connected through Zoom. Because of the social distancing, the class cannot be a lot of students. So there's still a lot of new things that will happen in the fall. And we'll all learn, I guess. But in general, regarding how the US handled all of this was lack of direct communication, lack of trust. And unfortunately, we are seeing the cost of that. We are seeing the consequences of that.
Yeah, and it seems like there is no real... real management, like what do we have to do? What are the next steps? How are we going about this and that? And your president wants fast solutions and always promotes things that are really dangerous. Medication that doesn't work and so on. So I'm really, I'm sad about your situation there.
You're absolutely right. There's actually no plan. That's the great way of describing. No plan of action, like what is happening. Every day there's like a new outrageous statement or interesting policy. For instance, for this ban on international students right now, they wouldn't be able to come in, and the ones who are here on student visa need to leave the country if their school is online. No one explains what's the rationale behind, like how does this help with anything?
I have a niece and a nephew who are studying in the US, so I have to ask them what they will do.
Yeah.
Yes, they will have to go back. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because most schools decided to go online. I guess there's also a push for schools to do in person, but it gets so complicated. It's just creating a lot of anxiety for families, students, universities. So I hope it gets resolved.
So, our next topic, again, American daily life topic. George Floyd is obviously a horrible thing that happened. We know about racism in the US. I think there are way too less Black people or people of color in Harvard. And I was shocked, and I think it's the American history that people, the slave history, that police is always much more prejudiced against people of color than white people. And maybe also after 9/11, Muslims with headscarves or so. I don't know. How do you see the situation in the US? What's your impression?
Yeah, so it is a very, very deep issue in the US society. And I think the George Floyd events caused me to realize how deep it goes. Because I also agree, at Harvard, there weren't enough people of color or Black friends at all. And this is actually one of the things that I noticed after I moved to North Carolina, because here there are more, there are more Black friends here. And I was like, wow. Harvard was not providing this at all, and this
No,
even.
I felt like there are a lot. When I was doing my doctoral thesis at the laboratory, I saw a lot of Black people in administration. They did like these administration jobs, secretary or whatever, and really nearly nobody in the lab. And also when I was studying, there were really maybe a few percent. And the amount of Blacks is more than 20, I think, 20% in the US. So it was like maybe 2 or 3% in the classes. So I was really shocked. Afterwards also, after I was thinking about it, our school was very international. The Harvard School of Public Health had like 70%, I think, students from all over the world. And I don't know how it was in your school, but we, and in the lab, they were all white, white people.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. I mean, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I totally agree. And it's. I mean, my experience at Harvard also reflects exactly what you described, both college and also. So my PhD was at the Harvard Business School, so I could see the business school a little bit too. And similarly, I mean, there were some Black scholars, but it was always like a token almost, I can't imagine how they must have felt. It was only like one person in the department for the past 30 years or something, maybe. But that doesn't solve the issue. And I think George Floyd event sort of, everyone maybe was aware of them. At least I think people who have been victims of racism definitely knew this was happening. This isn't anything news to them. But this was the first time I think white Americans witnessed something like this, and I find the unfolding of events very interesting. So first of all, the fact that we could watch it was terrible, right? It like just you watch the video clip and you're like, no, I can't even look at this. And in the same week, there was another event where a white woman in Central Park, I don't know if you heard about this, was like calling the police to give a false claim, saying her life was threatened by a Black man, which wasn't the case because the man was
telling her to put a leash on the dog or something.
Yes, exactly. So all of these things happened very quickly, very close, social media, and we could all see it. It wasn't like someone was telling us, oh, he did this, she did that. No, we could all see it. And I think that was one of the initial things about the outrage. And I think this time the event felt different in the US. For instance, even in my school, in our departments, and everybody I know, maybe you've seen this too, there are these bestsellers lists, New York Times bestsellers lists, and all of them are about, white fragility, white supremacy, how to fight racism. So this was the first time I saw a collective effort about this, and people were finally sharing their experiences. And the experience, because it is very, the people who have never experienced it, they don't know what this is about. And they somehow think racism is all about some very brutal act, some very cruel act. Yes, there are very cruel, very mean acts, but there's also very subtle racism that exists, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually,
and that's the most terrible part. That was what I was going to say. So please go ahead.
Yeah, what I see is also, I find it really difficult. Also in Germany, we had like a lot of protests, but we don't talk about racism and discrimination against immigrants in Germany. I feel like this is a discussion that is avoided. Mm-hmm. And when my father came in 1963, he just wanted to stay 1 or 2 years, try to gain as much as possible money to go back to Istanbul to construct his house. And And then he stayed another year. Then my whole family came, and I was just a baby. And we are now from here. I feel like I'm German, and also I feel my Turkish heritage, and I'm proud of my Turkish heritage. And I speak a lot of Turkish. I have a lot of Turkish contacts. But I feel like this whole issue of being an immigrant, even a successful immigrant in Germany, has had discrimination issues. Like, we didn't get all the grants, we couldn't apply for grants because we didn't have a German passport, or we couldn't do this or that, or if your name is Muhammad, you can't find a place to rent. They did like studies, for example, one CV, exactly the same content. You put on Hans Müller on the top, which is a very typical German name, and then you put Mohammed, whatever, Yilmaz on the top, and then Mohammed is not invited for the interview, but Hans Müller is invited, although it's exactly the same credentials. And so there is so much racism going on here, or I mean, I could tell you so many examples, but we don't really talk about it. I have the impression we're now trying to do research about it. I have a big center, healthcare center, that I'm the chief of, and now we're trying to do a questionnaire with all the immigrants who come to our place to try to find out what are the issues. Did they experience discrimination or even harder racism and we want to publish that. But I feel like we have like I think 500,000 black people or people of color, and about 4 million Muslims or people from Muslimic background. I mean, they are not all Muslims anymore, but they are from Turkey or any other Middle Eastern country. And we want to sort of put light on this issue, but I will see how it's going to go on. And also immigrants in Germany, going back to our COVID talk, have, I think, suffered more than Germans because they had a different social background. Maybe they had smaller apartments, or maybe they didn't have enough German proficiency, language proficiency, and didn't understand what they have to do or what their rights and what they should do during this lockdown time. And their children have problems in school. I don't know, are your schools opened, or is that again Zoom and online?
Currently it's Zoom.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So our schools are reopened, but I think it was difficult for pupils with parents without German language skills to help their kids at home to do their homework, to sort of...
yes.
So we had way more violence against women because they had to be together 24/7 and weren't used to it. We have a higher unemployment rate with, I think, immigrants than with Germans and so on. I mean, we have like a lot of issues all around the corona crisis, and we didn't have a look at it yet. So I am trying to do research. I'm not a typical researcher. We have a clinic. We have like clinical work, but we're trying to do questionnaires and then find out what's different than with Germans maybe.
Yes, I mean, I'm so glad you're doing research on this because it's such an important topic. And I guess every country, in a way, is showing these similarities, that here also Black communities are more negatively influenced by the COVID-19 crisis, or in general minorities, not just Blacks, but like in general people of
I heard
color.
that Blacks are really dying a lot of like very over proportional Blacks are dying from corona. I think half of the deaths are people of color or Black people,
Yeah.
because I think their social status is less. They have a lot of diabetes and obesity and other risk factors, and male are
More likely. That's
uh,
yeah, that's what I read as well. And also what you said about, even if you are educated, even if you are, even if you have the best credentials whatsoever, that doesn't solve the problem. One of the things that caused a lot of, at least in the academic world, that caused a lot of outrage was this. They started a hashtag called Black in the Ivory, and all of the Black academics who are in these wonderful schools, Ivy League or very prestigious schools, they're academics now, they're professors now, and they started to share their experiences on Twitter with the hashtag Black in the Ivory. It can be something like you described, maybe not getting the grant, or even if you have the same credentials or even better credentials, other people give preference to because of your race and ethnicity. And it was very, very emotionally heartbreaking to read those, like how the subtle racism and sexism also exists.
Exactly. How is it to be a woman?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't know how things are in Germany, but obviously in the US there's a lot of way to go to. And when I was coming to US, I was very young, of course, but I was still thinking US would be better. I don't know. Maybe we want more progress worldwide, but somehow I think sexism is also a huge, real problem here.
Yeah.
With lots of things.
How many professors do you have in the US? In Germany now there is a slight increase, but like 10 years ago it was maybe 3%. Now it's more than 15 or so. And also the heads of departments or the heads of big centers like I'm the head of 2 centers, is very seldom female. It's ridiculous. I mean, in medicine we have like 60-70% women starting off studying, more women than men, but I don't know where they get lost. Maybe
as you go up the hierarchy, it all becomes
it all becomes the same. I mean, how is it with professors in the US? Do you know the
I don't have the exact ratio. But just by observing, I would say women are much, unfortunately, they don't have the equal leadership roles, at least. And this is something that we, at least the dialogue, have shifted. We started to talk about this a lot, like representation matters. Seeing someone like you as a leader, as someone who's powerful in your organization is important. And nowadays, even in 2020, in the US, when we look at those positions, we see a lot of men, and we also don't see enough of ethnic diversity or racial diversity. We just don't. And it really has to change.
White and male. Where do I have to go?
That's the group.
I mean, let's laugh a bit. How about your career as a comedian? How did you start off? What are you doing? When will we see you perform?
Sure. So the comedy adventure actually started in North Carolina, which is, of course, very strange. Now, why would someone start after PhD? Maybe that's the reason, after I finished my PhD.
After such
it's time to share this misery on stage.
So you're doing a lot of jokes about your PhD and academia and
Yeah, everything, you know, PhD, academia, relationships, being an immigrant here as well, and from a, you know, I also, so because I came here young, I would say, you know, I was just right after high school. I still feel very identified with the American culture, but I also, you know, I'm also Turkish, and having this duality, and going there, coming here, and there are lots of funny things about that. Definitely being an academic, a female, I guess, adds to that. So I share lots of stories. And the way I started was, but there's this comedy club very close to where I live right now, my apartments, and it says, you know, come Sunday we have stand-up workshop.
Well,
And
I would love to be there.
yeah, I just said I want to try this. What is a stand-up workshop? How does that work? And I go, and we had this lovely teacher, and we were only like 2 people in the class. Not many people want to do stand-up comedy on Sunday by themselves. And the teacher said something very interesting. He said, comedy stems from frustration. So if you've been frustrated, this is a good place.
Now it gets interesting.
And I was thinking, oh, I just finished my PhD. I have slow cooked frustration inside. You know, it's just there. I haven't shared it with anyone yet. It's just this super slow cooked frustration. So that's how I started. But I learned a lot of things, because I totally agree that, in fact, Mark Twain has a beautiful quote about this. He says, "There's no humor in heaven. You know, when things are great, there isn't that much to laugh about. But when things are problematic, you can find maybe something funny about them." So that's how I started. And it's a very systematic thing. You know, you arrange timing.
And then the timing is really important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. When will you perform next?
So nowadays, of course, our comedian world is also very much influenced by the whole crisis.
Oh yeah.
Because we can't have the show. But there are Zoom comedy nights, which I'm doing right now, which is very interesting, because if people, you know, if I don't hear laughter, I just say, oh, people are on mute. That's why. You know, I don't even question.
What jokes do you have about German Turkish people? They would say, I mean, I don't have so much of an accent. I think my English is fine, but they would say the way I talk, the way I put my point across is like, it's always very impressive.
I think your English is great.
So
I think
they would always trust me would finish it. Research we suggested, they're like, okay, they will do it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think your English is great. But I am also someone who has an accent, and you know, I don't even hear. This is the weird thing about accent. If I heard my accent, I would change it. I would make it. But to me, it sounds perfectly American. I'm like an Emily in my head.
I returned 20 years ago, so for me, this English is totally fine. So.
It's great. Absolutely.
But I actually miss my life in the US. It was really a nice life. I mean, the great thing about it was that New York is not the US. I had a lot of really international friends in New York. And also I was in Boston. I just arrived in the lab, and then I had invitations to everywhere, to a softball game and to a barbecue and this and that. I mean, people really welcome you. They are nice. And I had so many prejudices against the US, but actually I love this being nice and welcoming people, and really they don't want to talk about your deepest issues, which is okay. I mean, they're not supposed to be your best friends when you just met them, but it's also a little bit Turkish. The Americans are like Turkish people. They make you feel welcome, and they feed you until you can't
exactly
breathe anymore, and they are nice, and they have a lot of outdoorsy stuff. I love this outdoorsy life there. I had a group of people who would always, like arrange something. I just had to follow their lead, and then we would go to this national park and we would go hiking or skiing or do this and that. And then there was always something going on. I mean, that's also student life.
Yes.
And, I miss this being easy with a group of international friends from all over the world. And also joking about themselves. Like we had really a few Indian guys who would study with me, and their marriages were arranged. Like the very classical way. They had ads in the Bombay Post, and then there were 10 women applying to marry this guy who does his PhD in the US. And then they had this astrologer looking at this.
Wow.
That was so...
It is really arranged. If there's astrology involved.
Yeah, and then there were only 3 girls left, and then he was asking me, like, what do you think about these 3 girls? And it was like, I had so many nice, friends from different countries who met there and brought in their own cultures and their own, views of the world, and we had a really good time. And so I was supposed to stay. I had an offer, but then I felt like, no, I don't want to immigrate again. I grew up in Germany. I felt now I belong, and I didn't want to, immigrate again. But I miss this easygoing life. But I mean, maybe there's also another side to it. I don't know. What do you think? Is that like over exaggerating?
No, I loved how you described it. First of all, I also do think that I feel sad for my American friends that now that their representation is this administration, which is, I don't know, I don't think the world has a very good view of the whole situation in the US, right? But my experience with American friends and also international friends was very similar to yours. People are very welcoming. They wouldn't open up immediately, right? In Turkey, people would also start to talk about very personal stuff very quickly. You go to Turkey and people would be like, I hate my mother-in-law. That's
okay, that's normal. Because the mother-in-law is not setting free her son. She wants to have him for herself. And
yes. And people would share it. In the US, people wouldn't share personal stories that often and very quickly, but they would be super welcoming, like you said. They would be, let's do this, let's do that. I, in fact, learned hiking is a hobby and is a thing in the US. Because before then, I was like, oh, it's just walking. But there's so many outdoorsy things here that people actually do organize these trips. So that's wonderful. Meeting people from all around the world is great. Also their cuisines. I mean, Turkish food is great too, but I didn't know about all of this, Japanese food, Asian food, Indian food before. This is all my US life. In general, I think there is this very welcoming, it's an immigrant culture. Everyone is from somewhere. Even American friends, if you ask about their family, they would say, oh, my grandfather was from, maybe Germany, Italy, somewhere. So that's a very much ingrained in the culture. So you feel like you are in this universe. I also didn't come here thinking that I would stay this long, by the way. But I guess, I'm taking one day at a time, and so far I'm here.
Go back to Turkey?
Normally I go both in Christmas and one time also in the summer, so twice a year. But this year, this summer, I didn't want to take the long flight risk. Yeah,
better safe than sorry.
Better safe, exactly. And thankfully we have these technologies. I don't know how I would do it. It's without. Sometimes I think about people who came here many, many years ago. How did that work without the FaceTime?
Yeah, that's the great thing. I mean, come on, you're at the other part of the world, and I can
Right.
chat with you. How
Right.
great
We're
is
so
this?
close right now.
Like we just miss our coffee and our pasta or burek or whatever. It's really nice. It's nice that we met. It's great that we got together.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, so you're invited to Germany. Please come.
Oh, I would love to. I've been to Berlin a couple of times. I loved it. Next year, maybe.
It's waiting for you.
It's so
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Germans go to Turkey, and a lot of Germans are mixed up with us. I have a German husband.
oh, you do. It's
So
great.
now I'm totally mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we really, the second generation, the third generation. I mean, there is one part of Turks in Germany who actually got even more conservative because they fear of assimilation makes
Mhm.
them freeze in whatever time they immigrated, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and they are way more conservative than people in Turkey. What
Yeah.
I see, I have a lot of Erasmus students or students from Turkey or friends or researchers I get to know, and I see that they are totally different than the young Turks here. So we try to really help them to develop their own personality and not be afraid of belonging to the German culture. There
Yeah.
is this one part, huge part actually, of Turks who are very conservative. I think it's the same with Turks in the US. I think it's the phenomenon of immigrating and being afraid of being swallowed by the big
Yeah.
culture you immigrated to. And then there is this well integrated part of people who are really confident in both cultures, like I hope I am, I think I am.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I also feel actually a little bit American after 3 years. I really following politics and following what's going on. And I like American series because women can be a president, can be whatever, can be like a leading role or the head of a department and so on. And you hardly see that in German or not at all in Turkish.
Yeah. Oh, in Turkish, I think in Turkish TV series, every woman is, the same.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think they have the same plastic surgeon.
That's right.
And it's really sad because I mean, at least they are well educated and sometimes they have their own apartments. And now the really newest issues of Turkish series is that they even have sex before marriage, which is like a big issue. In Germany, you don't talk about that. You don't talk about women having their own needs and wishes and wants. And in Turkey, I think it's getting, at least in the big cities, it's getting more and more relaxed, and women can choose whatever they want. But only if they have like economical freedom, if they have their own jobs, if they at least it looks like there is a big change going on. And in the US, obviously, the better educated a woman is, the more she can do what she wants.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah. I mean, I also like how the US has started these movements almost, I hope that at least with the, Me Too movements started in the US, which did cause, at least, we talk about these things. I'm not sure what the eventual change will be. I think we still have a way to go there, but at least we talk about these things. Like, there's a whole Me Too issue and people are more aware. And now I hope the same thing happens for racism. And hopefully much more progress, of course, I demand, but the fact that it started here also, signals some sort of awareness of the society. Yeah.
What are your wonderful future wishes, dreams?
Yes.
What do you want to do? What is your holiday plans if you ever get to do something?
Normally, my plan would definitely be to visit my family in Istanbul. So one of my hopes and dreams, I guess, include an airport hug with my loved ones at some point. In general, I think every day it's in the U.S. with the heaviness of the whole political spectrum and social unrest. It becomes very, we talk with our friends and everything. Everyone feels this, the world is collapsing. And I know things are hard, but as an optimistic person, and maybe that's how I do comedy too, I do think that these things will bring us closer, and we'll have a more creative, better world. We still need to solve this acute problem first, but I think even the fact that I also think we all have done a quite good job, individual level. I think people have done amazing. Like, look how we adapted to this whole Zoom thing. Now it's a part of life. It's like, okay, Zoom, sure. I'm ready to roll on to this Instagram live. This wasn't something that I did like 2-3 months ago, right?
Yeah,
now
I did
we're
a lot
all
of Instagram talks. That was also interesting. Yeah.
now we're all professionals.
I have one again.
Yes. Now we're all professionals. So hopefully good. I hope to do some research also related to whole COVID crisis to understand our behavior better. So my contribution, I hope, will be that way. In terms of vacation, I don't have specific plans. Maybe driving distance places that I can go to with a few friends here, but we'll see. It's still up in the air. Definitely daily jokes. That's.
So what do you want to know about us? What is like your questions to us?
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the like one of the exciting things you're working on right now? And you already share lots of very interesting, very exciting research projects, for instance, but what's like one thing that excites you nowadays? I would love to learn.
I just had a long talk with my team. We want to do more self-care. We want to help others, but don't get lost in helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we want to be careful not to be used by patients because some patients make us feel their despair and their needs, and then we over-exaggerate in trying to, solve personal problems for them, and it's not our, it's not our issue. They have to learn to solve their problems themselves. So we had a very good talk today with all the young doctors in my team, which was very impressive for me because I do this job for 20 years and I still do these faults of being too, I get angry, but still I do what they want, and they don't do what's good for them. So we have to really try to take care of ourselves, have more personal life, have more privacy, have more things that make us happy. And Corona crisis taught me that I have to spend more time with my friends and my family, that I need more, leisure time. I'm a workaholic, as all probably you too. All people who are successful are workaholics, and they are driven and they want to achieve something. They have goals, but sometimes I'm like, what's going on here? Why do you need this? Maybe you should really step back from that and try to really have a very laid back, normal life and try to find out what makes you happy in a very, in a very small environment. Mm-hmm. Because I used to go to, conferences. I had to delay all that or cancel a lot of talks. And by the end of the day, I felt like, wow, it's not too bad. I mean, it's good to take care of your roses in your garden or whatever, or to go for a run or to meet with friends and listen to music and, and cook and stuff like that. We really were we were forced to be with us, alone with us, or in our personal, private environment, and that made me rethink a lot of things. So we're talking about this a lot and trying to find out how to really have positive aspects of this Corona crisis for us.
Yeah.
Like we say in German, entschleunigen. It's like putting your foot on the brake, your feet on the brake of a fast-going car, like slowing down. So this is something, and also with patient treatment, that we don't have to save the whole world. Like we are, unfortunately, we are still one of very few centers who speak Turkish in Germany. And we have a lot of patients who come from like 200 kilometers or whatever longer distances just to talk to us, which is nice, but it's actually putting pressure on us. Mm-hmm. They should have somebody who is translating and stay in their environment and do their treatment there. So this is all things we're talking about, that we have to do a better self-care. But that's what we say. So I don't know.
That's a very, very important topic, and sometimes I view this time as like a wake-up call for all of us. It's time to start paying attention to ourselves and our lives. And
for example, I want to learn Spanish and drums.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, me too. I actually have taken a couple lessons in drums. Yeah. But I'm still very, I'm so new. It actually looks funny when you look at me. It's like pathetically funny because I'm so new.
That's actually something I loved about the States. You have a lot of these courses, and I was doing a lot of sports, so I was doing capoeira and stuff you can do there, and then you have these whole possibilities. There's a lot of people and these street festivals, but we have that too here in Munich. How is that in your new environment? How many people live in your town?
Oh, great question. It's a very small town, and without the students, it feels like a very, very small place. After Istanbul, even Boston was very small for me. I was shocked when they closed Starbucks.
Where do you live in Istanbul? Or where's your family from?
Yeah, so in Istanbul, for many years, we lived in Bakırköy. Now my parents moved to Silivri.
I was born in Bakırköy.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Maybe the relatives, who knows? That's interesting. A lot of my family lives in Bakırköy and Florya. So.
Oh yes, I know that area very, very well. Now my family moved to Silivri, which is the summery part of Istanbul. There's like the beach and stuff. But I know Bakırköy area very well. Probably better than Silivri.
So the next talk is about what to do in Istanbul.
Yes.
Where to go out, what to do. And
yes.
So, it was a big pleasure, a great...
so lovely to join you.
Fun to talk to you. It was really, although we had all these severe topics, but it's a real pleasure to get to know you. and I hope we will redo that again. And for now, I have to say goodbye.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was so lovely to join you. This is great. I hope to do this again as well.
Yeah. So have a good time and do something nice. You're in the middle of the day right now, right?
Yes, right now it's 3:50, or maybe like something like that, in the middle of the day.
So çok çok öpüyorum. Hoşça kal. İyi günler.
Ben de çok öpüyorum.